childhood secret. The one thing I never told a single soul outside my family. And when I finally found out who he really was, I wished I had run the very first night. My name is Rachel Ellison, 32 years old, single, freelance graphic designer. And 3 months ago, I packed every single thing I owned into a rented U-Haul and drove 8 hours south on I-35 from Kansas City to Austin, Texas. People always ask, why Austin? And honestly, I always give the same short answer: for a change of scenery. But that's not the whole truth. The whole truth is that I was running. Not from anything illegal, not from anything dramatic. I was running from a version of myself I didn't want to be anymore. A woman who ate takeout alone every Friday, who cried in Walgreens parking lots for no reason, and who had quietly, slowly let herself disappear into a life she hadn't meant to build. Austin felt like oxygen. New restaurants, new coffee shops on every corner, new faces that didn't know my history. I found a rental house on Blun Creek Drive, a little 3-bedroom with a big oak tree out front, a backyard that got wild with Texas wildflowers in the spring, and a kitchen with actual counter space for the first time in my adult life. For $1,650 a month, I had a front porch, a big sky, and finally, the feeling that things were going to be okay. I moved in on a Tuesday in mid-October, and for exactly one evening, everything was perfect. My street was quiet in the best kind of way. The kind of quiet that sounds like lawn sprinklers and distant wind chimes, and somebody 2 houses down firing up a grill. I was on my front porch, sitting on the steps with a cold lone star, because when in Texas, right? Watching the neighborhood settle into evening, when I noticed the man across the street. He was older, probably late 60s, silver hair, neat and combed back. He was wearing a plain button-down shirt, the kind my grandfather used to call a church shirt, even on a random Tuesday. He had one of those faces that looks calm the way still water looks calm. No urgency, no hustle, just present. He noticed me noticing him, lifted his hand in a slow wave, and because I was feeling good and new and brave, I waved back. He crossed the street, took his time, hands in his pockets like he had nowhere to be. "You just moved in?" he asked. His voice was low, measured, like a man who had learned not to waste words. "Just today," I said. "Still got a tower of boxes in the living room." He smiled, a thin smile that pulled more at one corner of his mouth than the other. "You'll get settled," he said. "Neighborhood's good. People mostly mind their own business." I liked that. I told him so. He nodded. Then he looked up at the sky for a moment, that bruised purple-grey kind of Austin sky you get in October, right before the weather shifts. And then he looked back at me, and he said, "You still hate thunderstorms, don't you?" I actually laughed, out loud, a surprised little laugh, because I thought it was a joke, a lucky guess based on the weather rolling in. "How do you know that?" I said, still smiling. He just shrugged the way people do when they're not planning to explain something. "Victor Hale," he said, and extended his hand. "Rachel Ellison," I said, and shook it. His grip was warm, his eyes were steady, and he said, "Welcome to the neighborhood, Rachel." Then he turned around and walked back across the street, back into his dark wood house, and closed the door. I sat there for a long moment after he was gone. My beer was getting warm in my hand. The sky overhead had gone a deep, bruised purple, and something, I can't tell you exactly what, had shifted in the air. Maybe it was just the storm coming in. Maybe. But it didn't quite feel like that. Let me tell you something about the thunderstorm thing. Because it matters. It matters more than I understood that night. I have been terrified of thunderstorms since I was 7 years old. Not the normal kind of scared, like pulling the blankets up kind of scared. I mean the full-on, can't breathe, every nerve on fire kind. The kind where your body just goes somewhere else and you're not in control of it anymore. My mum always called it my sky fear. She said I'd had it since I was little, but that it got worse, dramatically worse, right around age 7. She never fully explained why. Anytime I pressed her on it, she'd change the subject, or she'd give me this distant look and say, "It was just a rough time. You're okay now." I went to a therapist in my mid-20s, Dr. Caitlin Marsh, up in Kansas City on Ward Parkway, and even she couldn't get to the root of it. I knew it was connected to something, some event, some night. But whatever that night was, it lived in a part of my memory that had gone completely dark. Here's the thing that only my mum and I knew about this fear. I had never told a single boyfriend. Never told any friends, never posted about it, never mentioned it at dinner parties. It wasn't a secret I was ashamed of. It was just mine, private, small, hidden in a corner of myself I didn't offer up to people. So when that man, Victor Hale, looked at me on my very first evening in a brand new city and said, "You still hate thunderstorms?" He wasn't guessing. He couldn't have been guessing. That was not a lucky shot in the dark. That was someone who knew something. And the question that settled into my stomach that night like a stone was, how? My childhood on the surface looked like every other American suburban childhood. Dad, Thomas Ellison, drove a Chevy Silverado pickup and worked as a plant manager at a manufacturing facility outside Wichita. Mum, Diane Ellison, was a grade school reading teacher and the kind of woman who kept a big calendar on the refrigerator and always knew where everything was. I had a dog named Biscuit, a golden mutt who thought he was a lapdog until the day he died. We had a house. We had backyard barbecues. We had Christmas mornings with too many presents and Super Bowl parties with my dad's work buddies crammed into the den. All of it normal. All of it American and ordinary and fine. Except for one thing. When I was 7, a month after whatever night I couldn't fully remember, we moved. Not across town. We packed everything we owned into my dad's truck and my mum's Dodge Caravan, and we left Millhaven, Oklahoma, almost overnight. No goodbye parties, no last dinners with neighbors, no tearful driveway hugs. We just left. We landed in Overland Park, Kansas, right outside Kansas City, enrolled me in a new school, got a new house, started a new routine. And nobody, not once, not ever, explained to me why. When I was a kid, I just accepted it. Kids do that. When I got older and started asking, 10, 12, 15, I got versions of the same answer. Your father got a better job. We needed a change. Millhaven wasn't a good fit. None of it ever felt true. Not completely. It always felt like a story that had been decided in a room I wasn't allowed into. And now, sitting in my new Austin house as a storm rolled in over the Texas hill country, I was starting to wonder if that room was about to open. The storm rolled in around midnight. A real Texas thunderboomer, the kind that shakes the walls and makes the power flicker and turns the sky into a strobe light. I was already awake. I'm always awake in storms. My heart was doing that thing it does, that low electric hum of panic that starts in my chest and radiates outward until every part of me is on high alert. I was in bed, lights off because turning them on felt like admitting defeat. I was doing my breathing exercises, counting, grounding myself the way Dr. Marsh taught me. 4 seconds in, hold, 8 seconds out. And then lightning hit, and the world outside went white. And in that 1 second of white, I saw it. Victor's house. Every single window lit, like every light in that house was on at 3 a.m. I sat up, and there, at the front window, I could just barely make out a shape, a silhouette, standing perfectly still, facing my house. I told myself I was being paranoid. I told myself, this is what your brain does at 3 a.m. in a thunderstorm in a new place. It conjures monsters in windows. I pulled the curtain, lay back down. But I could not sleep. Because behind my closed curtain and behind my squeezed shut eyes, all I could see was that silhouette. Still, patient, watching. The next 3 days were like being slowly lowered into cold water. Victor was always pleasant, always neighbourly, always appropriate. He never crossed a line, never came to my door uninvited, never did anything that you could point to and say, there, that's the problem, that's the thing. But every time I saw him, he said something that he shouldn't have known. Day 2. I was at my mailbox, sorting through a stack of forwarded envelopes. Victor was across the street watering his lawn. You liked Jefferson Elementary, didn't you? He called over. The one on Maple. Good school. I froze. Jefferson Elementary. Millhaven, Oklahoma. A school I hadn't attended since the age of 7. How do you know that? I called back. He just smiled. Small world, he said. Day 3. I was at my car digging for my keys. I was heading to Whole Foods on Lamar Boulevard, and Victor came out of his house with a trash bag. As he passed his bin at the curb, he said, without looking at me, How's Biscuit? Oh, wait, I forgot. He passed, didn't he? I dropped my keys. Biscuit had been dead for 4 years. His name was not on social media, was not in my apartment listing, was not in any public record I could imagine. Day 4. I was in my backyard with my AirPods in, trying to work, my laptop balanced on my knees. I looked up, and Victor was standing at the fence. Just standing. Watching me, with that same thin, one-sided smile. He pointed at my right knee, specifically at the little 3-inch scar just below my kneecap. Climbing the big oak tree, he said, like he was reminding me of something. You were 7. He turned and went inside before I could say a word. I sat there in the wildflower weeds of my backyard with my laptop going dark in my lap. And I felt, for the first time since I'd arrived in Austin, genuinely, deeply, stomach-sickly afraid. This wasn't coincidence. This wasn't a lucky guesser. This was someone who had been paying attention to my life for a very, very long time. I called my mum from the kitchen on day 4. It was a Tuesday evening. The sky outside my window was that flat amber colour that Austin gets right before dark. I had been rehearsing what to say. I didn't want to sound crazy. I didn't want to be dramatic. I laid it out as calmly as I could. The thunderstorm comment on the first night, Jefferson Elementary, Biscuit's name, the scar. Mum listened. She didn't say much. She made small sounds. Okay. The sounds a mother makes when she is listening harder than she is speaking. Then I said, "His name is Victor Hale." There was a silence. Not a pause, not a "hold on, let me think." A silence. The kind that is made of something heavy. "Mum? Where did you say you saw him?" Her voice had changed, completely. She sounded like a different woman. "Across the street, right across from my rental on Blun Creek." No. Her voice dropped to almost nothing. "That's not possible. He shouldn't be there." "Mum, who is he? How do you know him?" There was another silence. And then the call dropped. Or she ended it. I don't know which. I called back immediately. Went to voicemail. Called 3 more times. Voicemail. Texted her. Nothing. I stood in my kitchen in the dark because I'd forgotten to turn a light on, and I stared at the floor. "He shouldn't be there," that's what she said. Not, "I don't know who that is." Not, "What are you talking about?" He shouldn't be there. As if she had been thinking about the possibility and had been certain he wouldn't follow through. As if she had been watching over her shoulder for a very long time. And as if whatever had been chasing our family had finally found me. I didn't sleep. I didn't even try. I went to my spare bedroom, the one I hadn't unpacked yet, and I dug out the cardboard box that my mum had mailed me years ago when she was clearing out the attic. The box had sat in storage units and closets and back bedrooms across 3 different cities, and I had never once properly gone through it. I went through it now. Old school report cards, a yellow ribbon from a 4-H fair, birthday cards I'd saved from childhood with that specific curly handwriting that kids use when they're trying to be grown up. My first library card, a cassette tape labelled Christmas 1996. And then, in an envelope taped to the inside bottom of the box, an envelope I had never noticed, was a folded piece of paper. A photocopy of a police report. Millhaven, Oklahoma Police Department. Date, October 14th, 1999. I would have been 7 years old. My hands were shaking by the time I unfolded it. The report described a restraining order application filed by my parents, Thomas and Diane Ellison, against an individual who had been conducting unauthorized surveillance of the Ellison family residence and making unsolicited contact with the minor child, Rachel Ellison. The report said the individual had been photographing the family, following the child to school, standing outside the house at night, and that the individual had a prior documented intense fixation on the Ellison family that local authorities had been unable to fully address. I read those words 3 times. Then I read the name at the bottom. Subject of complaint, Victor Dale Hale. And then the final note, written in blue pen at the bottom of the report. Somebody's handwriting, somebody who had added it later. Subject has vacated the area. No further contact. Case closed. November 1999. November 1999. 1 month after that report. 1 month after my family packed everything into 2 vehicles and drove away from Millhaven without a word. We hadn't left because of a job. We had run. And for 25 years, we had believed we'd gotten away. I sat back in my folding chair. Through the window of my spare room, I could see the lights of Victor's house across the street. Still on. Still blazing at 2 in the morning.
And I understood, with the cold, absolute certainty that only true fear can bring, that he had never stopped. He had just been patient.
The next morning, I got in my car. I know. The smart thing was to call the police. I know that now. But in that moment, my brain was doing that thing brains do when they've been running on no sleep and raw fear for 12 hours. It was cycling instead of deciding. I drove to the APD substation on East 7th Street and sat in the parking lot for 20 minutes, trying to figure out what I would even say. There's an old man across the street who knows things about my childhood. There's a police report from 1999 about him following my family. I drove back home. I was going to call a lawyer first, get my thoughts in order, make a plan. I turned onto Blun Creek Drive, and my front door was open. Not blown open, we're talking a couple of inches. But I had locked that door. I know I locked it. I walked up slowly, pushed it with 2 fingers. Inside, nothing was wrong. Nothing was broken. Nothing was ransacked. My laptop was on the kitchen table. My wallet was on the counter. My car keys were on the hook. Whoever had been in here had not come to rob me. I walked every room, checked every corner. And then I went to the living room, and I stopped. On the bottom shelf of my bookcase, where I had placed it on moving day because I didn't know where else to put it, was an empty space. A rectangle of clean wood where the dust hadn't settled yet. The shape of a book. My childhood photo album. I had carried that album through every move since I left my parents' house. Thick, plastic-covered pages with those sticky photo corners. My whole childhood life. School pictures, Christmas mornings, birthday parties, biscuit as a puppy. It was gone. And something about that, more than anything else, broke something open inside me. Because whoever had come in here hadn't wanted valuables. They had wanted me. Or more precisely, they had wanted the record of who I was. I sat down on my living room floor, and I made a decision that I will probably question for the rest of my life. I crossed the street. His front door was unlocked. I know exactly what you're thinking. I'm thinking it too, looking back. Don't go in. Call the police. Do anything but walk through that door. But I was not thinking clearly, and some part of me, the part that had been living with this enormous, unanswered question since childhood, needed to see. So I pushed open the door. Victor's house was clean, orderly in the way that bachelor houses can be orderly, not warm, not cozy, but functioning. A navy blue couch, a small flat-screen television, a kitchen with nothing on the counter except a coffee maker and a dish rack. I moved down the main hallway, and then I turned left into what should have been the dining room. And I stopped breathing. The walls were covered in photographs. Not like a regular photo wall, not framed, not spaced. Covered, edge to edge, floor to ceiling, layered in places, held with tape and tacks. Hundreds of photographs. All of them were me. Not recent me, not adult me. Little girl me. Me at what looked like my desk at Jefferson Elementary. You could see the construction paper turkeys on the bulletin board behind me. Me asleep in the back seat of my parents' Dodge Caravan on some long highway somewhere. I-35 maybe? Or the Kansas Turnpike. Me at my 7th birthday party in a backyard I almost remembered, wearing a pink dress with ruffled sleeves. Me running across what I recognised as Millhaven's Grover Park. Biscuit on a leash running after me. Hundreds of moments from a childhood I barely remembered. Hundreds of moments I had never posed for. I walked the room slowly, my arms at my sides, my whole body going cold. And then I saw it. In the centre of the main wall. One photograph, slightly larger than the others, pinned dead centre. A little girl at a window. Dark bedroom behind her. The kind of photograph you only get if you're outside, looking in. It was me, asleep, 7 years old, taken from outside my bedroom window. He had been outside my window when I was 7 years old. He had taken a photograph of me sleeping. He had kept it for 25 years. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't scream. And then from right behind me, close enough that I could feel the displacement of air, a calm voice said, "I was there that night, when your life changed. And you've been living the wrong story ever since." I spun around. Victor was standing in the doorway, hands out slightly, palms open, the universal human gesture for, "I'm not going to hurt you." His face was the same as it always was, calm, that unsettling, water-deep calm. "Before you run," he said, "please hear me out." "I'm calling the police," I said. My voice came out steadier than I felt. "You should," he said. "After, but first, please, just hear me." Something in his voice made me stop. Not trust, not anything close to trust, but something. "Sit down, Rachel." "I'll stand." "Fair enough." He pulled a chair from the corner and sat down himself, like he was making himself smaller on purpose. "I have been looking for you for 25 years, he said. "I know," I said. "I found the police report." He nodded. He didn't seem surprised. "What you found in that report is accurate, every word of it. I was outside your house. I did follow you. I did photograph you." A pause. "I know how it sounds." "It sounds like you're a predator," I said. "I know," he said again. And something about the way he said it, not defensive, not angry, made me stay. "I need to tell you about the night of October 13th, 1999, he said. "The night before my parents filed the report." "Yes?" He folded his hands. "Your parents, Thomas and Diane Ellison, were not your biological parents, Rachel." The room tipped sideways. "Your biological mother," he continued, "was a woman named Carol Hale, my daughter." I put my hand on the wall covered in photographs of my childhood. And in that moment, I understood something about why they were there. "Your mother, Carol, died when you were 7 months old. She was 22 years old, and she had a condition we didn't know about, a heart defect. She died in the night." His voice did not break, but it was working not to. "Before she died, she asked her friend, Diane Fielding, who would later become Diane Ellison, to take care of you, to make sure you were loved." My mother, Diane, was her friend. Her best friend since grade school. Diane and Tom couldn't have children, and your mother trusted them completely. He paused.
The adoption was private, informal, the kind that happened differently then. There were some legal papers eventually, but by the time all of that settled, you were already years into your life with them. I slid down the wall. I sat down on Victor's floor, surrounded by photographs of myself as a child, and I heard the rest of it. How Victor, my biological grandfather, had only found out about me 2 years after I was born. How Carol had kept the pregnancy from him because they'd had a falling out. She was young, she was scared, she was making her own choices. How, by the time he found out he had a granddaughter, I was already 2 years old and living with the Ellisons in Mill Haven. How he had tried to make contact through the right channels and been refused. How he had, in desperation, in grief, in the obsessive single-mindedness of a man who had already lost his daughter and could not lose his granddaughter too, begun to watch, to follow, to photograph, not to harm, to hold. "I know it was wrong," he said. "I know that. I have known it every day for 25 years. What I did was wrong and frightening, and I gave your parents every reason to take you away. I understand that." A long silence. "But you are the only piece of my daughter that is left in this world. And I am 71 years old. And I found you." I looked up at the center photograph. My sleeping 7-year-old face. My biological grandfather standing outside in the dark, looking through a window at the only piece of his daughter that was left. Grief does strange things to people. Love does too. Sometimes the two together do things that look, from the outside, completely terrifying. And somewhere in the architecture of this terrifying thing, there was a man who had simply, desperately, wanted to know his grandchild.
There was a long silence. The kind of silence where you can hear the city outside going about its business. A car on Blun Creek. Somebody's lawnmower 4 houses down. The distant sound of the ABIA flight path overhead. And all of it sounds like it belongs to a different world. Victor reached into his shirt pocket. He produced a wallet, old brown leather, cracked at the corners. He opened it and held it out to me. Behind a scratched plastic window, a photograph. Small, worn at the edges. A young woman, dark hair, my dark hair. Warm brown eyes, my brown eyes. She was laughing at something off camera with that full face, nothing held back laugh that I'd been told my whole life was unique to me. She was holding a baby in a yellow blanket. I reached out and took the wallet from him. My hand was shaking. "That's Carol," I said. "The day you were born," he said. She was 22 years old. She was so happy. I looked at the woman in the photograph. My mother. My biological mother, who died before I could ever know her, who trusted her best friend with my life, who laughed with her whole face. I looked in a mirror every day for 32 years, and I had never known I was looking at her. "She named you Rachel," Victor said. "Diane and Tom kept it. They said they wanted you to have at least one thing from Carol." I pressed my knuckle to my mouth. I was not going to cry in this room. Not yet. Not in front of this man. But the name I had always thought was just a name my parents picked from a baby book. It was the last gift my mother gave me before she died. I looked up at Victor. "Why Austin?" I said. "Why here?" "Your mother grew up here," he said. "She always talked about it. She used to say she wanted to come back someday." He paused.
I think maybe some part of you knew. I didn't argue with that, because some part of me had always wondered why, of all the cities in America, Austin had felt like the answer.
I want to be real with you about what came next. Because these stories, when people tell them, they sometimes skip over the hard middle. They go straight to the hug, straight to the tears and the music swelling and everybody holding each other in a parking lot. Real life is not like that. I walked out of Victor's house and I sat in my car and I called the Austin Police Department. I filed a report. I told them everything. The photographs, the 1999 report, the photo album. A detective named Marcus Webb from the APD's East Precinct took a statement. He was patient, thorough. He had the kind of weathered, seen-it-all quality that you appreciate when you're in crisis. He told me that what Victor had done, the surveillance, the following, the break-in, was in violation of several Texas statutes regardless of his intentions. I had every legal right to pursue this. I knew that. I also knew that I needed to call my mother. That call was, I won't lie to you, one of the hardest conversations of my life. Diane Ellison has been my mother in every way that counts for 32 years. She taught me to read. She sat beside my bed during every thunderstorm. She drove me to my first day at every new school. She has loved me without condition since before I knew what that word meant. And she had kept this secret because she had been terrified, genuinely terrified, that telling me would take me away from her. She cried for a long time. She said, "I'm sorry." So many times the words stopped sounding like words. And I told her, because it is the absolute truth, that nothing Victor had told me changed who my mother was. Nothing could. "You are my mum," I said. "That doesn't have an asterisk." She cried harder. The legal situation with Victor was complicated. Eventually, with the help of an Austin attorney, we reached an agreement. Victor would submit to a formal restraining order process with the understanding that if I chose to pursue a relationship with him, I would do so on my own terms, in my own time. He accepted all of it without argument. 3 weeks after I walked into his house, I called him. "I want to know about Carol," I said. "I'll tell you everything I remember," he said. So we met at Barton Springs, neutral ground, public, safe. And we walked along Barton Creek in the Texas November air, and he told me about his daughter. She liked old movies. She made her own pasta because she said store-bought was morally inferior. She wanted to be a landscape architect. She had the biggest laugh of anyone who ever walked into a room. She named me Rachel because she said it meant you, a gentle creature. And she wanted me to know from birth that I was soft. Not in a weak way, but in the way of something that chooses kindness. I have never been able to hear my name the same way since. It's been 7 months now since I moved to Austin. 7 months since a man across the street said 6 words that cracked the surface of everything I thought I knew. Here's where things stand. Victor Hale is still on Blun Creek Drive. The restraining order is technically in place, but I'm the one who decides whether it remains active. Right now, we talk on the phone once a week. He tells me things about Carol. I ask questions. It is slow and it is careful, and it is, I think, what healing looks like when there is a lot of complicated history to move through. My mother, Diane, came to Austin in December. She and Victor sat in my living room on a Sunday afternoon while I made coffee in the kitchen and tried not to hold my breath. They talked for 3 hours. I don't know everything they said, Some of it wasn't mine to hear. But by the time she left, my mother hugged me in the driveway and said, "She would have loved you so much, baby." I cried all the way back inside. I found Carol's grave. She's buried in a small cemetery in East Austin, not far from where I now live. I went for the first time on a February morning, just me and a bunch of Texas bluebonnets I'd bought from a stand off of Manor Road. I placed the flowers at the stone. I stood there for a long time. I didn't say a lot, just, "I'm here. I found my way here." And I think she would have liked Austin in October. And I think she would have been proud that her daughter figured out how to make pasta from scratch. And I think about something Victor said to me on one of our walks. He said, "Your mother used to say that people find each other across any distance, as long as they keep the light on." I had been afraid of storms since I was 7 years old. Since the night my grandfather stood outside my window in the dark, not to take anything from me, but because he was the last person in the world still carrying the light of someone I had never gotten the chance to know. I'm not going to tell you I'm not still afraid of storms. I am. Old fears don't go away clean. But I am, for the first time in my adult life, genuinely curious about what comes next. And that feels, to me, a little bit like being brave.
I've been thinking about what I want to leave you with. Because I know what you came here for. You came for a story. Something true and strange and human. And I hope I gave you that. But what I really want you to take away is this. The things we run from have a way of finding us. Not always because they're dangerous. Sometimes because they're necessary. Sometimes what looks like a threat, a man in a window, a neighbor who knows too much, is actually a door. And doors look terrifying when you don't know what's on the other side. I moved to Austin for a fresh start. I didn't know the fresh start would come with a complete rewrite of the first chapter. But here I am. Same name my mother gave me, same fear of storms, same scar on my knee from climbing the oak tree. Just more whole than I was 7 months ago. Just more mine. And if you are somewhere right now, feeling like there's a piece of your story that got away from you, a person, a name, a truth that someone else held onto while you lived in the dark, keep looking. Keep the light on. You are worth finding. If Rachel's story moved you, if you felt it somewhere real, hit that like button, share this video with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe so you never miss a story like this one. Every like and every share helps these real human stories reach the people who need them most. Thank you for being here. It genuinely means everything. Want to hear another story that will stay with you long after the video ends? Click the video on your screen right now, because the next one is even more unbelievable. And trust me, you need to hear it.